Hi there. Welcome to episode 46 of the Austin Downbeat. I'm so happy to bring this episode to you. We are closing in on 50 episodes, and it's just been an absolute delight, each and every one. And I have no exception this time. I have such a great guest for you today. But first, South by Southwest is rapidly approaching, and we have a lot of people playing. So don't only listen to me, also check the World Wide Web for all the South by shows. I'll do my very best. Make sure you're following me on social media at Austin Downbeat on Instagram, as well as at Cat is on the Radio on Instagram, because I repost those stories from all the folks that I follow, and that's a great place to see who's playing where on short notice if you're spontaneous like me. Okay, let's get to it. This covers the 7th through the 13th, I'm pretty sure. On the 7th, Tuesday, today, Sister Golden Hair is at the Saxon Pub. Tomorrow, on the 8th, Brian Wolf is at the Pitch. Christine Renner is at High Noon. And then at the O4 Center, we have four of my favorites: Natalie Price, Ray Prim, Matt the Electrician, and Allie Holder are doing a songs in the round song swap situation at the O4 Center. On the 9th, Urban Heat is at Hotel Vegas. West Texas Exiles are at Waterloo Records. I just saw them in person. They are fantastic. Silver Sun Pickups are at Emos. That's kind of a band from the past. Back in my Los Angeles days, they're a great band. And Barbara Nesbitt and Scrappy are playing upstairs at Continental Club Gallery. On the 10th, we have Sir Woman at Planet K. We have the Dead Coats at Far Out Lounge. The Beths are at Scoot Inn. They're from New Zealand. They're really cool. And Guy Forsyth is at the Saxon Pub. Switch pages. There's so many. On the 11th, Katrina Kane is at Takova's. Como Las Movies is at Hotel Vegas. Madame Radar is up in the hill country at Pootie's. I'm going to that one. Deezy Brown is at Hotel Vegas, and Jeff Plankenhorn is at Saxon Pub. My God, you have so many choices. That's all in one day. On the 12th, you have Brandon Patier at Vista Brewing, A. Sinclair at Hotel Vegas, Motenko at Central Machine Works, Daniel Fears at Planet K, Jane Leo at Hotel Vegas. I mean, it's so good. And last but not least, on the 13th, this is Monday, you have Monday Night Supper Club at El Mercado South and Bob Schneider's Lonely Land at Saxon Pub. I'm always out of breath. Okay, I'm going to keep it really short because I just really, truly, my guest is Chris Frenchie Smith. So Frenchie Smith is the owner of the Bubble recording studio here in Austin, very well-known and beloved, and as is he. And he takes a little time to talk to me about just producing and what he's doing and how he sees his role. And I have to say, if not for really learning anything, just to enjoy this man's heart and perspective. He's just one big juicy belief machine, and it's such a pleasure to just sit with him and listen to him talk and see how he sees the world. So I hope you enjoy my conversation with him. I know you will. I know you will, because I did. He's just absolutely beloved in this town. Not that he would say it. He's the humblest person I think I've ever met, but is so deserving to be recognized and put a spotlight on him, even though he doesn't really take that very well. Anyway, please enjoy my conversation with Frenchie Smith. All right. We're going to capture all the gold now. Frenchie Smith, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you for having me, Kat.
I've really been looking forward to this.
I appreciate the invite. We were just off camera, and I I guess I was a little self-conscious that talking to a record producer may not be as interesting as talking to like a rock star or a band. They're much more interesting. The record producer, if in my mind, if there was a parallel to Star Wars, like the rock star is like Princess Leia or Han Solo, right? They're very exciting. The record producer is more of an interpreter. They're more like C3PO or R2D2, those type of
Yeah,
archetypes. But
sure.
thank you for expanding your channel the into the nerdiness of record producers.
Well, I mean, yeah, well, it's an absolute pleasure. I don't see it that way. I see it like I am utterly fascinated, and I'm hoping that you will expand as much as you can and feel comfortable about exactly what you do, because honestly, I think the word producer in general is very common in lots of different fields, and I think it's thrown around a lot, and I don't actually think that a lot of people know specifically with record producing exactly what you do. What's your, elevator pitch or longer for exactly what you do? And I know that there are so many facets to this, so we can really dive into the facets because it's not all just like analytical and logistical.
Well, well, I think objectively, right? If you look at the word producer, you don't have to think too hard that it's synonymous with product.
Right.
It's a neighboring. It's a noun. It's two neighboring nouns. So the record producer, there's a sliding scale. They don't necessarily have to be an audio engineer or some type of mixer. They do not have to have any type of musical skill whatsoever. They are mainly in an old school way, maybe 1950s kind of way. The origins, if you could really go back to the origins of a record producer, I think they were a conduit between the outside world and what was happening inside the studio. They were mindful of what was happening in the studio and had, I would hope, some type of magic or inspiration to really bring commonality to a large group of people. And they were absolutely in tune to what was happening behind closed doors, right? Very secretive recording sessions way before the iPhone. They were all quite mysterious.
Yeah.
And then they had their eye on the prize of how that would translate to outside of the studio, like a transference of sorts.
Mhm.
So they're supposed to be an objective party. And how does that relate to me? Well, I in the film world, the film producer is absolutely like a mega boss of just like skull crushing levels, right? Like I'm the film producer, right? They're doing deals at the Cannes Film Festival with some type of sheik, right, to raise $1 billion to make some film, and they make it independently, and then actually just get distribution through like a Warner Brothers Films or something, right? But there's a lot of wild deals that how films are made that I
Right.
don't know if the public is that wildly aware of. It's fine. Um, the record producer in me is more of an encouraging person, and so I first of all I'm wildly childish, and producing records. I'm going to back that up. It is my job. However, I have a horrible business model. I actually enjoy getting along with people and entering a recording session and leaving it, gaining or rekindling a friendship. And that's
Mhm.
very selfish and very childish. Like if you're all about business, you don't care about those things. I do. So my my bag is all about finding out what the goals are, for the group or that artist, looking at their budget and what their timeline is, and listening to their material, and just pitching every idea I can to maximize what it can be. And I think the modern record producer, which is it's quite common, and I do this, we're recording people, we're editing, we're mixing, we're doing arranging, maybe we have musical ideas, or sometimes we play on tracks, sometimes we co-write. It's all across the board.
Yeah.
But for me, I love believing in people that maybe the record industry at large wouldn't deem as something, a commodity that's worth investing in. And I think that's a giant loss. And so to me, my favorite record producers now are going into tiny little places with tiny little bands and dreaming big. And so I don't know if I answered your question, but I work with all types of size of artists, career size, and some that are just starting out, some that have been around for a long time and have a real audience. So it's all over the place, but my performance is typically the same. If I'm going to do it, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you a bit of a muse?
What? Say that again.
Are you a bit of a muse for the talent?
Well, I don't know if that would be the word. I'm maybe I'm a soundboard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll definitely try to regurgitate, like, okay, here's how the song is going. Is there anyone else here that these things are happening? This is how the structure is. And like,
Right.
oh, I don't know. We just play it. It starts and then it's done. It's like, okay, well, here's the structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
These parts are really attractive. Maybe over here, maybe it's a little confusing. Is that our dream? I try to ask a lot of questions.
Well, I was telling you before we hit record, your reputation precedes you in the most beautiful way. I think, I've at this point, you're my 46th interview, and I would say you're pretty much tie with Johnny Gowdy of being mentioned. You
Wow.
know what I mean? And Johnny, like, I just talked to Johnny and he was like, he thought I was talking to you that day. He's like, tell that guy I need to call him back. I'm going to call him back.
Amazing. I've actually known Johnny a long time, so I really, it feels like a dream to say this, but I really want to say I met him in 1992.
Well, that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
Doesn't it seem like insane that that isn't 20 years ago anymore? Because remember how it used to be like 20 years ago? Oh, yeah, that was like in the 80s. That's not how it is anymore. I don't know how old you are, but I feel like we're maybe around the same age. And it's alarming.
The cool thing about Johnny, and I know this is my interview, Johnny was really good back then, and he's still really good now. But like, you're talking about like 1992, he had it going on, and
Yeah.
so it was just already in him.
Oh,
So, and I thought, I think we probably liked similar type of music, but maybe back then at that age, I really saw the divisions and the lines of what type of rock band each one of us favored versus, like, no, it's just rock. You know what I mean? It's
right.
very, I don't really zero in that much anymore. Like,
Yeah.
okay, Johnny's kind of into what would he had been into? Um, I'm sure we agreed on a lot of stuff. Certainly
Mhm.
like Nirvana and Stone Roses. Like, okay, he's cool.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And then he branches off. When did you get to Austin? I know you're from Oklahoma, but when did you get here?
I moved to Austin in 1990,
Hmm.
and so and then upon getting here, um, probably not the most exciting years of of my musical career, but I really had to do what all types of musicians do: get a reasonable job to get by as I tried to navigate how where I could fit into music, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, in 1990, I mean, this is depending on who's watching this interview. It it at that time it felt like Austin. It was smaller, but it was also a little bit of a tougher nut to crack, and it took me at least like a year to just know how people spoke to each other, and
Mm,
how to not be overly excited when I recognized someone that I'd met briefly once, and then I
right.
saw them again and they didn't remember me. You know, I was just, oh my god, I'm at a rock show, and I remember meeting that dude once for 30 seconds. I have a friend here. Like, maybe allow that meeting to happen again for the first time again, or 12 more times.
I love it. I love it. I love your enthusiasm. You have such a, has it waned at all? Or I mean, I don't know you. I feel like I do in a sense, but like, I don't know you. You feel like you're just a naturally enthusiastic, very loving person. You feel like that's still consistent.
Well, I mean, I definitely think anyone choosing to be in art for a living, whether it's film or, and I consider web design art, absolutely, you know, or comedy, or doing slam poetry, what um, um, a painter, any dancing, musician or audio engineer, filmmaker, film editor. You we're really right. We're kind of a, it's all happenstance, isn't it? There's no like guarantee that there'll be that place for us under the sun where we can belong. And I I tend to focus on the positive. You know, I had a manager named Sandy Robertson for many years, and he was getting up there, and he passed away last year. But Sandy was a real icon in the record producer management, um, just culture of that. And he was my manager for 15 years. And you would think that someone like Sandy, who was known to be an aggressive, you know, business person, you would think that there was an aggressiveness in him. And he, a few times, I might have been struggling with my attitude with the record label or something, right? That the band was signed to. We're working on this record. The band loves it. I love it.
Mm,
And the record label's not hearing it the same way. And maybe I'd have some kind of pouty comment, and he would just say, well, you need to focus on the positive, and if they have if they have concern, block that from your mind and dig in deeper and make it beautiful. You
mm,
know, don't let that stuff get in your head, and don't even let a negative thought get in your head. Do your damn job. I'm like,
yeah.
okay. So but I do feel wildly grateful that
Mm,
I, you know, I get to live in my imagination for a living.
mm,
And then what the other part of it, and it sounds a bit cliche, but I literally have years of memories of seeing musicians at their best. You know,
mm.
there's something, because I'm not quite in it. I'm not really in the band. I would like to be. I'd like to be in the gang.
Yeah,
I'd like to be as cool as the band. I mean, I was teasing myself earlier.
yeah,
There is a thing with the band, and I respect it. We get that close, and they keep a little bit of their chatter for them, and then they speak to me like this.
yeah,
And there is a reserved nature that they really are wanting to perform for me, and as I want to roar and perform for them.
right.
It's
So beautiful. It really is. It's so beautiful. You are creating something that never existed before, and it's all happening between your heads and your hearts and in that space that you're sitting in right now called the bubble, which is your studio. And
Yes.
it's just I mean, think about how every day everyone's listening. I mean, maybe not everybody, but 99% of the population have their radios on or music on or this or that. It is oxygen for our soul's DNA, I believe. Like the first thing we do when something is happy or sad, we put music on. Like music is so ingrained in our culture and our DNA. Yet at the same time, like making that music, creating that thing, I don't think we spend a ton of time and give reverence to what someone like you is actually helping to sort of orchestrate and produce and make it happen, create.
It you know, it is an interesting it is an interesting task
Yeah.
to be in a recording studio. There's musicians. I'm here. We have all the technology we would need, and we have some good song ideas. And but there's no audience. There's no stage lights, and the audacity that we're going to have the clairvoyance to know how to somehow musically astral project our will and dominance into people's ears is
Right.
it's some pretty witchy stuff when it connects, and you really don't know what would connect. And sometimes it's songs that maybe the schedule was getting really tight and there was a deadline, and like no one was too fussy about this funny little song we forgot about, and just there was a real pragmatic way about going about capturing the song. And you and then an audience members, they kind of hear us just not acting, just like, hey, this is us collectively.
Right.
This is this song, this is us. We did our best. We kind of had to keep it moving. Those are
Yeah.
quite powerful moments as well.
I bet. I bet. What's the general vibe? Does the vibe change of like what you create in there? Like, I mean, I've been in recording studios before. I mean, do you kind of set a standard bubble vibe and then, a band or musician comes in and sort of like modifies it or works with it, or do they just get free reign to kind of set their own vibe?
I would really have a dark feeling about myself if I woke up one day and realized that I never had an open forum where people could shine their DNA through their
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
Um, I, I love to collaborate, and I love to really ask questions. I love to speak up about ideas at the right times.
Yeah.
I also like the mouth breather approach of just letting a song happen and getting to a place where everyone can hear factually what the heck they're doing together, and then we're all talking about it as in some type of a community sense. We're talking instead of me talking to them with some kind of like Uncle Buzzkill trip, it's like we can all collectively talk about the song,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden some really rich discovery can come into play. And I may have some ideas, and then I'll uh, reveal those at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Have you always been, I know you were in a band, but before that, were you a musical kid? What kind of kid were you? Little Frenchie.
I I think being a young kid in the 70s certainly, definitely influenced um, all things I thought are cool. Like, okay, it's the 70s. Van Halen came out. All
So
right, I
cool.
knew about that. All right, Star Wars is a new thing. Yeah, that's cool. Um, just uh, Charlie's Angels haircuts existed. Yeah, that's cool. Um, there was something really rock and roll, I think, in the air in the 70s. And no matter what town you were in, right? Like just the look
Yeah.
of bell bottoms and handlebar mustaches and long sideburns. All of that just was just life to me. And then I think uh, pretty early on in my childhood, I didn't have much interest in anything other than listening to my records and maybe making some of my toys in my room be the band and perform the songs, but and then you know eventually I probably cried about it enough, but I got an acoustic guitar, and then that got me into school band and got me into electric guitar. So pretty as a kid, I did play guitar, and however, in the town I grew up in, that didn't make you awesome. I think now in Austin, I'm really happy about this. If you're like 13 in a band, it's cool. Your friends want to come to the show, and all the parents are like, hey, well, they need to do something. They're playing at a pizza place. Yeah, we can go do that. Yeah, the band's awesome. Um, in the 80s, that was a little more strange. It didn't make my friends or myself the cool cats in school at all, which it's okay, you know.
What kind of music were you playing in your band in the 80s?
Um, that was definitely influenced by the times, not Morris Day's band, but just if you're going to try to have just where I lived, which was a smaller town, Durant, Oklahoma, if you're going to have a band that had any type of value, you needed to be able to play what was kind of hip
Yeah.
at the time. So we would play Van Halen very poorly, Motley Crue, just kind of pray that our moms didn't try to figure out what the lyrics were. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Right.
like you're 13, you're singing it, you don't even know what it means. It's like I don't know. It's cool, you know. Um, but by happenstance, a friend of mine that Eric, that was in my high school, he definitely was a bit counterculture and was as long as he got straight A's, he could cut his hair any way he wanted, and he's extremely intelligent, and his parents would um, no questions asked if he wanted to buy 3 pieces of vinyl from Wax Trax Records in Chicago, or 3 from Restless Records, right? Like direct order,
Yeah.
and or Discord. So he was buying a lot of vinyl from these indie labels, and so he was turning me on to myself and like my band, half of my band at the time, onto some of these records, and then we kind of sold the idea to our families when we took a road trip and went to this basement punk rock show, mid 80s, to go see the Dead Milkmen, which
Yes. I think I
and
used to have a Dead Milkman t-shirt. I
oh
would
yeah,
wear to school.
and that was really encouraging, because I definitely had seen concerts before, but they might have been like a much bigger concert or something, like Joan Jett playing at Six Flags. It was a more produced show, but going to something that was underground in a basement of a just falling apart church, and
Yeah.
seeing what that audience looked like, and musically hearing what the group was playing on stage, that that it wasn't it, it wasn't that prodigious. it However, it was just really kick ass the way they did it together, and so that was quite different from what a Van Halen was doing or a Motley Crue. They, you know, those bands were more notey. The Dead Milkmen were more economical, and it just slammed.
Yeah.
So our little cover band broke up, and then we were a 5 or 6 piece, and then we became a 3 piece and became more punk rock.
Nice. I would have totally come to see you play.
I, we were not in high demand. I only think we got to play 1 or 2 gigs,
That's okay.
but it but it was still you know it was jarring enough to our community that we're just lucky we didn't get beat up or get snuggies or our heads flushed in a toilet. You know, it was the '80s. Kids were tough. Hazing
Yes.
was fine. That wasn't really a word yet.
Right, right. Do you think, and I don't know if this is right or not, but I was kind of thinking about it earlier of how like back in the 80s, it, and you know, 70s, 80s, 90s, it kind of felt like there were maybe more lanes, like maybe music wasn't as homogenized. Does it feel that way to you now? It's kind of like I was thinking about it. The reason why I asked this question, I was thinking about how my daughter was asking me about high school, and I was like, well, high school, you were so clearly in a one group or another, and there were a lot of groups, and most of those groups were dictated by the music that they listened to. Not all, but
Absolutely.
some. Are you seeing that? Maybe not in schools, but like I drive my kids and drop them off at school, and high school, everyone looks the same. I don't see anyone with an anarchy jean jacket and a mohawk. Like they all look the same. So does that translate over to music today? Is it a little more homogenized? Are there less lanes and it's just kind of blurry?
Well, I mean, I guess to me the word oh, it's rock music, right? So that
Right.
some years ago, yeah, and I mean this with no disrespect. Some years ago, you know, we've already talked about Van Halen. Van Halen and Sonic Youth would have been wildly different rock genres.
Yeah.
But now, if you were to, for me, if I was to talk about those two bands versus, you know, um, a hip hop artist, it's like they have more in common. There's drums on stage. There's loud guitars. It's audacious. They're
Mm.
singing. It's in English. I'm not as precious about it, and I could love them for different reasons. And then and but it's absolutely not an R&B band. It's not a hip hop act. It's not a country act.
Right.
So like the subdivisions of, well, it's post rock, rock, hardcore. It's like, no, yeah, sure, it's punkish, thrashy, kick ass rock and roll.
Yeah.
I'm not too fussy. It my dividing line is how many live instruments are on stage,
Oh, gotcha.
and a friend of mine, um, a friend of mine, I did not go to Austin City Limits Festival that year, but he had explained to me that his favorite part of it was Calvin Harris, the DJ, was performing on one big stage while Beatle Paul McCartney was on the other stage, and they were playing at the same time. And he got he physically put himself in between the two stages where he could hear both songs at the same time, and he kind of tripped out. Like that was his experience. I was like, okay. And I guess I had an elitist point of view. I was like, well, I feel bad for Calvin Harris. You know, he's performing against, he's hitting spacebar. You know, and while Paul McCartney's actually playing real music, you know, he must have been demoralizing for the attendance, and that was not the case. It appeared that they had equal draw, and it was just some one group. You know, one person was awesome for this group of people, the other.
Yeah.
And so I thought about that for years, and I had an allergic reaction to how elitist. I immediately just thought people were idiots that they chose to watch a DJ over Paul McCartney.
Right.
That's not, that is the most ugly thing to be in my head. People like what they like, and
Yeah.
I have no right to put myself into that. So in fact, it's almost become inspiration when if I am working with a rock and roll band or someone that has rock leanings, I try to keep an antenna open for, well, is this just, is this song going to just absolutely have all these rock leanings that you have to love these 20 specific rock and roll records to understand the language of why we're making these decisions, or can we open the floodgate a little bit and have
Yeah.
fun with how people are making records, and drop in some jiggy beats here and there, and then the
Yeah.
band kicks in. It's like it maybe rock and roll in general can and I think people are doing it, but I think the future of it is observing that people, young fans, right? That's really the person that you're kind of going for, right? They'll buy the shirt, they'll wear your button, they listen to every word,
Mm-hmm.
but they're not as vehement, or I love this band and I hate this band. They're like, they it's like, no, I don't like that so much, but I really love this. And so their ability to consume, you know they can, for $9 a month, they can listen to millions of dollars worth of music. And so they they're experiencing a lot of freedom. And so when you go back to being a rock band, right? Here's our loud guitar, here's our bass, here's our drums, and we're going to yell at you. I think there's some room to be playful with it, and you know, smell what a Taylor Swift record is doing. Well, why not?
Yeah.
Why should we be immune to that?
Yeah. And surprise the listener. One of the things I always look for when I listen to a new band or go see a new band is, the dynamics. Like I want to be, I want the beat to change. I want you to do a cool break. I'm watching the drummer and seeing what, like, surprise my brain, right? Because my brain wants resolution. My brain wants repetition. My brain wants to find pattern. I want you to throw my brain off and make it so delicious and cool.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that I remember. I go home, I'm in my car humming the song because you got it in there, I love that stuff. Love it.
And but those are, those are it's one thing for a song to be going really well, and then you're kind of grateful for that, and then just, okay, cool, this is on a computer, we can hit save and back this up.
Yeah.
Have we missed any opportunities to take this anywhere else for like 7 seconds? Just
Sure.
that playfulness of it. I especially when the genre of what inspired that decision, or
Yeah.
what kind of stage that decision would live on, even if it's different from the archetype of the rest of the ecosystem of that song.
Hmm.
That is, it's kind of scary for a band, but it's fun for a fan to listen to. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, because the cool thing is, like, we are not, we're not one dimensional, and our influences as listeners and experiences are not one dimensional. I was born in the late 70s and grew up in the 80s, but while I'm growing up, I'm hearing music from the 50s and 60s that is literally going into me before I even realize what I'm hearing, and
mm-hmm.
remembering and knowing all of that. So for a band today, don't be scared, right? Throw in some of that old school stuff because it's in there for us as listeners. It's in there subliminally, it's in there consciously, and it's comforting, frankly. I think some of it is nostalgic and we don't even know it, right?
I mean, you're absolutely right. In a recording session, building a song, you literally have the sonics, or the attitude, however you want to describe it, but you can actually draw from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond, and willfully infuse those some of the a hint of that type of scene,
Yeah.
and and let moments be dramatic, right? Because someone is listening to that song, they're just hitting a space bar, or they're hitting it's on a Spotify playlist. They're not even touching anything. They're like, "Hey Siri, play that list I thought was cool." They didn't touch anything.
They
And so
demanded and
yeah,
it came.
so it's, and we're really competing with, they could choose any song in the world to listen to. Well, let's be worth their attention. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's cool to push it more.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was a 90s thing. Everybody wanted success, but they didn't want to say what I'm saying. Hey, it's cool to succeed. That was like kind of
Yeah.
like game over.
Yeah, sure, sure.
You're not alternative enough.
Yeah, yeah, like rebel. Don't, yeah, grunge. Don't charge money for, a lot of money for the tickets. And that was the whole
Mm.
Nirvana thing. I remember that. Awesome. Well, how is life going for you? I mean, what's going well for you right now? And then inversely, like what's kind of the challenge? What do you want to sort of work on this year?
I mean, I I just it's difficult for me to say what's going well or what's going bad. I think I've really been doing something similar to what I'm doing now for 30 years.
Wow.
So you know, what's going well
All of it.
is what's going well is that I feel like it may be micro kind of, you know, epiphanies, but
Mhm.
I still feel like I'm learning, and that's
Awesome.
exciting, and I'm still very curious, so that's going well for me. What's going bad? It's sort of outside of me, and it's bigger than me, but I think, if the lion's share of people that I record live in Austin, I think the Austin musician is living in a really tough time. The
Mhm.
with rent being so difficult to afford,
Mhm.
jobs that match what the rent is.
Yeah.
The my that's I think that's the hardest thing for me, is seeing that, a musician of all ages, they're just,
Mhm.
they are what they are, but they're really needing to have two or three day jobs to get by. And
Mhm.
so it's becoming more common that people can only allocate so much time to their craft. A really prodigious hardworking band, it's common for them to, and I'm proud of this. They rehearse once a week. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
30 years ago, if someone rehearsed once a week, I wouldn't think of them as a real band at all. Not
Right.
no not anywhere close. Like 5 nights a week.
Right.
And it's just the times are a little tougher, and it's really everywhere.
Mhm.
So it's not I can't demonize Austin. I'm an Austin boy. I love it here. I'm proud to. I chose Austin, and
Right.
so and I could go anywhere. I still choose to be here.
Mhm.
But it it messes with my emotions that bands don't have as much free time to kind of space out
Yeah.
and just make noise, and just getting by is a real struggle. So the thing that's my biggest challenge is outside of me. However, I'm inside of it because I breathe the same air as everyone.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't want to demonize Austin either, but for being the live music capital of the world, and if you're going to wear that badge, I also think there's a responsibility and a duty, right, to support. So many of our artists are moving out of town, and Buda and Lockhart and Bastrop, and so that they can afford, to live and pay rent. So I agree with you. That troubles me as well. Part of the reason why I do this show, because I'm just trying to do my little part to educate people about, all kinds of things and show people, but that's a part of it that kind of bothers me too.
I when and that's I think if you I've kind of retired from Facebook. It just for some reason it was not a place that was fun for me to share. But Instagram, I feel pretty confident
Yeah.
to be active there. And if say you have X amount of followers, if we're lucky, 5% give a shit. You know what I mean? But if that's true, that 5%, and you listen and to what you're doing and what I'm doing, I'm not really on there talking about how awesome my car is or my hair transplant. I'm doing unsolicited, like from my gut, shares about music made by other people that I admire. And frankly, sometimes it's not even music I produced. I when the Deer put out a record this year, I'm sorry, last year, I just thought it was so cool, and I just started sharing stories about it.
Yeah.
I didn't work on it at all. So if my voice has any type of value, it's just you know please be with these bands, and if you dig them, they have a Bandcamp page, they have
Yes.
whatever, they've got merchandise, they have shows coming up.
Yeah.
They are worthy. I there's no way I would record with a band that I just would find myself counting the hours. I just
Right.
my own ears and my discography are precious to me. It's I have more of that than a bank account. So um, if if um, if I'm recording someone and I'm sharing stories about it, to some degree they've moved me. So, and it's not a PR firm. It's not a I'm not getting paid to. I'm still a very professional producer, even if I don't share that a
Right.
song came out. I still
Right.
did my job. That part of it is absolutely just an innocent thing.
Hmm. Yeah. You have such a wonderful heart. When you lay down in bed at night, do you do you get songs stuck in your head from the day? You're listening to music all day long. I mean, or can you clear your mind and find yourself kind of setting that down?
I when it's time for me to go to bed, I'm a little bit like the Energizer Bunny. So when I go to bed, it's just like, okay, we're good. and
Yeah,
and
you're
I
done.
but but I I never want songs to get outside of my head. There's just thousands of memories I have, little sound clips of different different music that I've gotten to record that it all informs some kind of greater thing. So I actually never want it to leave.
Mm.
It's my greatest asset is those memories. It's a map, and I don't know where it's going, but it's it's very real to me. So when I lay down, if the map starts going spazzy, that means my life is awesome.
I love that. Would you ever write a book and try to document some of this stuff? I feel like I've just, touched the very surface of your heart and who you are and how you see the world and your philosophies. Is there any way that you would even try to capture this for us?
Well, I wonder what the audience for that would be. My wife once she's asked me, like, you have seen some things. I'm like, people don't want to hear the life of C3PO. They want to party with
I don't know.
Princess Leia, like Han Solo. But she's like, I don't know.
I agree with your wife.
It's there's something in there. But if it comes to me, I'd have to, I ultimately, and I'm not trying to be defeatist. It's just there really is, unfortunately, my big, if there was a book, it's like there's no destination. It's just that whatever and whoever you are, if you like X amount of things and maybe you're okay at it, please do stuff that makes you happy. If that's, I think that would be the moral of the whole thing. And it's not about being the next David Geffen or Rick Rubin or anything, because I don't mirror them at all, you know. But it is mind blowing to me that I my only job is recording predominantly unsigned bands. It's mind blowing.
Mm. Well, I'm so glad that you are there doing it, 30 years under your belt, and hopefully no signs of stopping. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me and us watching and just giving us a little glimpse of who you are and what you do for the bands and the artists that you record, but also for us that are listening. I appreciate it.
Well, it 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 does wildly tickle me when any song that I've had the have been, you know, granted to be able to work on, when it touches someone or it takes on a new meaning that it
Yeah.
never meant that to the band or me. All of that is just such a buzz. But I do have to say, as much as it's awesome to be on your show, and I appreciate this very much, the the bands and I really I don't know if I could really go into all of them, but the bands are the reason, if anyone's listened to a recording that I got to work on and they like it, the band brought the heat. It absolutely started with them, and I was lucky to participate with them. But the it for my production, and you asked earlier, what does a producer do? I'm telling you right now, producers very rarely tell the truth. I'm telling you too straight. If you like me and I'm on your show, it's because you love those bands, and I was lucky to be in the room with them.
Hmm. Well, what a wonderful way to end this conversation. Um, I'm so glad you're doing what you're doing, and I can just feel. I'm sure that people will be able to feel it too. But the level of heart and passion, and that is your reputation. I've talked to many people, and they've mentioned you, and that is exactly what they say. They're like, "Man, if this guy believes in you, you can do anything." And
Oh
so,
my
a lot
God,
of credit to you, Frenchie,
that's gonna
because
make me cry.
well, I mean, I'm telling you the truth. I don't know that I've ever heard someone spoken about so consistently in that way. Like, you want this guy to believe in you, and if he says yes, you get in there, and he's going to make you feel like you can do anything. And that's, I mean, that's you, man. That's you. And
Oh,
I, before I hit record, we were talking, and I was like, I was telling you, I'm just the kindling, you're the fire. This is about you. And you're like, we're both kindling.
mhm. It's
We
true.
are. We are both kindling, but man, you make some freaking bonfires, and you are a huge part of that. And I hope that you know that in your heart.
Thank you for saying that. And for any of those watching, if you've ever been curious
Yeah.
about what I do and whether you think I would believe in you, write me a message. You know, like, don't be shy.
Yeah.
Life is bloody short.
I agree.
And some Februaries we don't even have electricity. Drop a boy a line. Say hi. I'm not a snob.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, oh, I could talk to you for hours. I definitely want to come visit the bubble and see it in person someday. But until next time, that does it for this episode of the Austin Downbeat. Frenchie, thank you so much for coming by. It's been an absolute
Thank you,
pleasure.
Kat.
I'm gonna hit
Thank you for tuning in.
yeah, I'm gonna stop recording, but you stay on, Frenchie, and I'll say goodbye to you. And for everyone
Okay.
watching, we will see you next time. Bye, guys.